Hello, welcome again to Benchwarmers. We are in Yankton, South Dakota this week here at the National Field Archery, the Yankton Archery Complex here in Yankton, South Dakota, which is a beautiful facility. We'll talk about that with Jeremy Hoeck from the Yankton Press and Dakotan coming up in a little bit. Joined by Ryan Moores, the athletic director here at Yankton High School. How are you,
Hey,
sir?
great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Are you an archery shooter? Have you tried this out?
Archery is not my gig, but looking at this facility, I wish it was, because this is amazing.
It is pretty sweet, and they've just added some tennis courts in addition here to this facility that you guys get to use a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just adjacent to this big room, we have a room with 4 courts on there where the Yankton High School tennis teams, girls and guys, use it when we have inclement weather, and it's been fantastic because last spring, as you know, the weather didn't cooperate much, so we were able to use that a lot. So this place has really been a godsend to Yankton High School tennis for sure.
Yeah, Yankton's got it going on for facilities. We'll talk about that here
in
a little bit. But one of the things, of course, we have to talk to you about is some basketball, some high school basketball. Big buzz around the state of South Dakota with your son, Matthew Moores, and winning the South Dakota State Championship. It had been 40 years, I think, since Yankton had won the state championship in basketball. It was also on the 25th anniversary of you guys back in the day at Huron High School winning the state championship. So that was cool at the state tournament
really
last year.
Special weekend, the new round of 16 formats kind of made things really interesting to see how the field turned out, and we were fortunate enough to get through and get into the state tournament. And it had been since 1981 when Yankton had last played in a semifinal game. So as you and I both maybe recall, the Sunshine League name of a state basketball tournament if you don't make it to that night bracket. So Yankton had not been in the semifinals since '81 and had not won a state title since '78. So it was an exciting 3 days for the community of Yankton, and it turned out fantastic for all of our kids and for the whole community. We had a tremendous showing in Sioux Falls, so it was a lot of fun.
And yeah, you're right. Yankton in the Sweet 16 was an 11 seed.
Correct.
And got to the semifinals. I read somewhere where Matthew said, we just want to get to the semifinals and then see what happens.
Yeah, that was,
they ended up winning the whole thing.
Exactly. Their goal was to get in, and then, on top of that goal, they wanted to make it to the semis because it had been so long since we'd been there. And everything panned out and it worked out wonderful. And it was interesting to note that, we were the 11 seed. The last regular season game of the year, we were playing Brandon at home, and had we won that game, we would have been the 6th seed, and a loss in that game dropped us to the 11. So that's how tight 6 through 11 were for seeding. So, it's kind of fun to see how that round of 16 leveled the playing field for all 18 teams in the state, and it wasn't geography anymore dictating who gets in. It was actually regular season play, so it was fun to see that.
All right, going to be another great season of Yankton High School basketball coming up, and let's talk about Matthew Moores and all the attention that he's getting from national programs. I mean, he already offers from Nebraska and Iowa and some of the Big Ten schools around here. And talk about the team he's on. There's a Vera-sponsored team. It's called the South Dakota Attack.
Correct.
He was on the 16 and under. He could have played on the 15 and under team, but I was on the 16 and under team with Kobe Bush from Huron, Jack Cartwright from Sioux Falls, O'Gorman. Some of those guys. They were in Vegas a couple of weeks ago playing in a tournament, and Matthew was pretty impressive in that tournament. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So we were in Vegas just a couple of weeks ago, and they played in the 16U division there, and there were 200 teams in the entire tournament for the 16 age group. So they had us in pool play initially, and there were 4 teams in our pool, and we went 3-0 in pool play. We beat a team from San Francisco, we beat a team from Orange County out there, and then another team from New Mexico. So how we did in pool play determined where they put you in brackets overall. So us going 3-0 the way we did in pool play put us in the top overall bracket in the whole tournament. So we made the final 32 teams out of 200. And then we made it all the way down to the final 4 in that bracket. We lost to a team from Oakland in the semis who went on to win the championship. So South Dakota was really represented very well out there in Vegas, and our kids played fantastic. They played against some really quality opponents, and there were a lot of college coaches in attendance. It's kind of neat to look across and see some of those big time programs and faces you recognize on TV watching our game.
Is it getting crazy already with the recruiting process? And he's got 3 years of high school left.
Right.
But is it going to get to Kansas and Duke and North Carolina and the Blue Bloods that are going to come calling? Is it going to get to that level?
I don't know. It could. It might not. Matthew just keeps working so hard every day. It helps Dad has a set of keys to get in the gym anytime he wants to, but he's the type of guy that he wants to be in the gym, and he just feeds off of, when he does well, it makes him continue to want to work and keep getting better. So, he's excited about the opportunities that he has in front of him, and he just wants to keep working hard and see what else keeps coming down the road. But he's very focused in on becoming the best basketball player he can, and as a parent, that's fun to watch.
Yeah, and we should hit on that a little more. I was going to say, kids see him play, little kids that look up to him right now, and even high school kids that say, this is the guy I want to play like. And it's not just he's going out and playing games. He has had to, I assume, work very hard on the skill level that he has already.
Yeah, he would be the first guy to tell you that it takes a lot of work to become a skilled basketball player and to do everything he does. And you and I both played basketball, so it takes a lot of time to become the basketball player that he has. So he works at it relentlessly. He is dedicated to being in the gym. He's in there hours every day, whether it's working on shooting, ball handling, different types of shots. And it pays off for him. So when he sees that it's paying dividends the time he's putting into it, it just drives him that much more to get in the gym. And the Yankton High School is a city school facility, so when he's in the gym working, sometimes there's little kids in there and they watch and they try to pick up on what he's doing, and then they try to simulate it. And funny story, yesterday I know a person who lives in Yankton has a elementary age student, and the mom told me she dropped her son off at the gym. Well, it just happened to be that Matthew was in the gym working out, and she called her son and wanted to know, hey, are there any friends in there that you're shooting around with? She goes, well, yeah, my friend Matthew Moores is in there playing with me.
Nice.
So funny, I went home and asked him about it when we got home, and he goes, yeah, I actually was playing a little one-on-one with him, having a little fun with him, because he was in there watching and asked about how basketball was going. So.
And he's not that much older than these middle school kids that are playing. No, he's 15, and it helps to be 6'7" and have good genes, but he obviously works very hard at his game, and he's going to be a sophomore. You have another son, Michael, that's going to be an 8th grader.
Correct.
And it's possible that they will be playing varsity together at some point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Michael really works hard at his game too, and it helps that his brother has had so much success from the work he's put in, and Michael sees that too. So Michael's been in the gym working, and Michael's really got a good class around him, his 8th grade group. They lost one game last year as 8th grade or as 7th graders, so looking forward to that bunch moving up to the high school level. And yeah, hopefully maybe a year or two when they're both in high school, they'll get some time on the court together, which would be a lot of fun for the two of them and for his mom and me too.
Yeah. Bucks are going to be good. Rex Reichen, I think, is going to be back as a senior coming up this year. Had a great state tournament as well, along with Matthew.
And then Rex has a little brother who's Michael's age, who's an 8th grader. So yeah, Rex had a great state tournament, but a lot of fun with all the potential coming up the pipeline too.
Yeah, and I asked this half jokingly. Do you have some job offers from other cities that are coming and say, come work for us?
Well, we're happy in Yankton, and the kids are happy in Yankton. It's a great place to live and a great place to work, so we're very happy where we're at.
All right, going to be a great season in Yankton sports, and football's coming up. Practice starts this week. We'll talk about a new football stadium that's actually over 100 years old here in Yankton. Some new turf this year. We'll talk about that when we come back with Ryan Moore.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers here in Yankton this week at the Yankton Archery Complex with Ryan Moores, the athletic director at Yankton High School. And there is a famous football stadium in Yankton. It's called Crane Youngworth Stadium. It's more than 100 years old, played football there forever. And there was some thought a couple of years ago of maybe moving the football facility back or to the high school in Yankton and move it away from Crane Youngworth. That did not happen. It was voted the other way to keep it there. How's the process been, and what's the progress been in the last 2 years on the stadium there?
Yeah, the stadium, the grandstand bleachers at Crane Youngworth Field were pushing 100 years old, and they were getting to the point where we had to make a decision if we wanted to knock those down, replace them, if we wanted to stay put where we're at Crane Youngworth Field, if we wanted to move over to the high school complex out on the northwest part of town. And the school board discussed it, and after lots of discussion, it was decided that the complex would stay put where it's at in the middle of town. Obviously, beautiful setting in the neighborhood with trees all around, and it's just something that we did not want to give that setting up. So with soccer coming in to being a school sport here in the last 5 years, we knew that we had to have a spot potentially for our soccer team to play too, but we also knew that being on a grass complex over there at Crane, that it probably wouldn't be sustainable to keep that grass alive if we're going to play football and soccer over there. So the determination was made. We were going to remodel the stadium, and we tore down the existing 100-year-old bleachers. We put brand new bleachers up on the opposite side of the stadium. On the north side, we built a new concessions and restroom, which was long overdue from the old stadium. And we did some renovations in our field house to make our locker rooms more up to date and feasible for teams to come in and utilize those. And then the big part of the project completed this year was we put synthetic turf on the field. So it's a fantastic complex, and it's going to allow Yankton High School football teams, soccer teams to use that for all of our games and for practices. And we've also partnered with Mount Marty, and Mount Marty is going to be playing their soccer games out there too. So sat down with Mount Marty officials, and we did some scheduling with our coaches and Mount Marty coaches, and the place will be busy from July 30th until November 3rd without a break in there, because you know those college teams practices on Sundays too. So it's going to be a busy place, but it sure is going to be a focal point of the community, and we're sure excited about how it turned out.
Yeah, big commitment, big money commitment from the city, and in high school sports, you don't necessarily have to be on campus for high school football. It almost makes sense to have it more as a community stadium in a lot of ways.
Yeah, its location is unique because it's walkable distance from all kinds of homes that are in the area.
Yeah.
So it really makes it neat that the community can converge on the one place. It used to be the Yankton College, right on Yankton College's campus before that closed back in the 80s.
You need to get some parking figured out. That'll be kind of the last step.
Yeah, we're hopeful. There's a northeast corner of the complex that is a grassy field right now that we're hopeful that can get resolved sometime in the next couple of years, where we can get that paved. And we also have talked about a bus drop off that would go right behind the field house too, and we're hoping that can become the final phase of the project. But in the meanwhile, it's kind of it's a special situation where people kind of line the streets for blocks, and you find this place to park and you walk to the stadium, and it's really a neat environment for football and for soccer now too. We're looking forward to how it's all going to turn out.
Yeah, it's a crown jewel of facilities really in the state of South Dakota. And just lastly, as far as football practice starts this week in South Dakota. New football coach at Yankton High School, Arlen Lickness. Did we finally get rid of Arlen? Great coach, great person. We're going to miss him.
Involved in coaching for 38 years, I believe it was, and Arlen chose to retire, take the retirement district benefit here at the end of the school year. And kind of a neat thing for Arlen, football coach for everybody was also an assistant basketball coach, so it's kind of neat to send Arlen out as an assistant coach with the state basketball championship. So really happy for Arlen that he's able to get into that retirement side. And so our new head coach is Brady Muth. Brady was an assistant on the staff here for the past 8 years, and he's actually a YHS alum, graduated in '96. Brady has Yankton blood running through his veins, and he was a great choice for us to move on from Coach Lickness. And while still having a lot of Coach Lickness's plays and a lot of Coach Lickness's blood in the program, so to speak, Brady will do a good job of implementing some of his own stuff and keeping some of the old as well. So we're looking forward to how it all pans out.
Yeah, a lot of tradition to continue in Yankton High School football as well. All right, when we come back, we're going to finish up with Ryan Moores, who played with some of the all-time greats. We'll see some of who he remembers. I got a couple in mind. We'll talk about that when we come back. Back in Yankton with Yankton High School Athletic Director Ryan Moores. Won a state basketball championship with Huron High School in 1993. Graduated in '94, I believe, right? Just want to talk about some of the players back in the day there. There were some of the all-time greats in South Dakota. Eric Pikowski from Rapid City Stevens, played in Nebraska, played in the NBA, comes to mind. He was your era, correct?
Yeah, I think he was a junior or senior when I was a freshman. So he was at the top end of the high school realm when I was getting my feet wet in high school basketball.
All right, Jason Sutherland from Watertown went on to play at the University of Missouri.
Jason's a year older than I am, so we played together against each other for 3 years, and it was some great battles between Huron and Watertown at that point in time. And if you're familiar with the size of the Huron Arena or the Watertown Arena, if you weren't there by 5:30, you weren't getting in, and those are some pretty big venues. So that was unbelievable, the amount of people that were filling into those arenas at that time.
Scott Morgan and Mitchell, younger, older?
The two Morgan boys, Wes and Scott, were older than me.
A little bit older.
Closer to
they
your
were closer
age.
to my age, yeah. But who else do you remember from like the mid-'90s there?
So Eric Klein was a senior up at Aberdeen when I was a freshman. Matter of fact, my freshman year I didn't play too much varsity, but I was sitting on the bench when he scored that 59-point outburst up in Aberdeen against the Huron Tigers. Yep. Ryan Miller, who's the older brother of course, Mike Miller, is exactly my age, so a lot of battles with him as the years went by. And the Huron-Mitchell rivalry, as you can well attest to, was always a fun one, being 50 miles apart. So that was a lot of fun as well. And all those games back then just seemed like they're so highly competitive, and they were so fun. So to see some of those guys now in this day and age, it's kind of cool to see them, everybody in a different realm, and maybe talk about those old days a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Great talking with you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Ryan Moores, AD here at Yankton High School. When we come back, we're going to talk with Jeremy Hoeck from the Yankton Press and Dakotan, who knows all about this complex, all about how big archery has become. Welcome back to Benchwarmers here in Yankton, South Dakota this week, and joined by Jeremy Hoeck from the Yankton Press and Dakotan. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, my man.
Yeah.
Originally from Sioux Falls.
Born and raised in Sioux Falls, yeah.
All right, and a dozen years or so now here in Yankton.
12
right?
years in Yankton, yeah.
All right, you know this facility, the Yankton Archery Complex. It's home of the National Federation, what's the NFAA?
National Field Archery
Field
Association.
Archery Association. Actually moved their national office here not too many years ago. It's been 9 or 10 years now, but why has archery, of all things, exploded in Yankton, South Dakota?
That's still a question people ask because, as you said, the national headquarters moved from California to Yankton. And at the time, people had wondered, well, why? Archery's not big here. Why? Well, it was Bruce Call, the president. He kind of convinced them to, well, if you bring it here, here's what we can do. We can X, Y, Z. We can build you this brand new facility. We can keep expanding. We can make it a big deal in Yankton. And I think a lot of people maybe were skeptical.
Yeah.
And now, as you said, 10 years later, you can just see this place, and it's the largest archery complex in the world. Between the indoor options and the outdoor ranges that they have, it is by far the biggest in the world.
Yeah, there's all this, and then you go south of here to right along the river. There are acres and acres of outdoor facility, right?
Yeah, and there's a brand new complex behind us that's behind this wall, and so it's an exact replica of where we are now. So it's twice as big as it was just 2 years ago.
And you hear Olympians talk about Yankton has one of the best facilities in the world.
Yeah,
and that's legit, isn't it?
Yeah, and they always say that, and it still kind of boggles your mind. You'll have these, Olympic archers, and they'll come to Yankton and they say, this is the best complex. And it's one of those things where I've always thought, even if you're not an archer, which I'm not, I don't shoot a bow, but to hear people say that, it's kind of one of those where it takes somebody outside your bubble to say it. So when you hear those kind of people say it, you kind of think, they're probably onto something, because we drive by this place every day. We just kind of take it for granted what we have here. And even if you're not an archer, it's just amazing to come and watch that level.
Yeah, and there are youth events and state events and national events that come here every year.
Yeah, international events. They just had the World Archery Indoor Championships earlier in the year, and that was a week-long thing. So you had people from all over the world, 50-something countries, right here in Yankton. It's crazy.
And there's a lot of kids that use the facility. You can get day passes, you can have corporate events, all that kind of stuff. Does Mount Marty have archery programs?
They do. They have a varsity level, so they offer scholarships now for archery. Yeah. They're one of the few in the country that have that. So they can go and recruit and offer scholarships for archery.
And in 10 years, you have never taken this up? And
I think I've shot one time. They convinced me one time to do it.
All right, it's an amazing facility. And it is pretty cool how it's grown over the last decade or so here.
Absolutely.
In Yankton. All right, when we come back, Jeremy covers University of South Dakota football. We'll talk about that, what the prospects are for the Coyotes this year, in his opinion, and some Yankton High School football with their new head coach coming in. More with Jeremy when we come back here in Yankton.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers, presented by Avera Orthopedics, and we're here in Yankton, South Dakota at the Yankton Archery Complex with Jeremy Hoeck from the Yankton Press and Dakotan. You guys do a fabulous job, by the way, covering college and high school sports around here. You cover the University of South Dakota, football season getting going. They're in spring camp already. Let's talk about the Coyotes a little bit, and got to the playoffs in the FCS last year. They lose a great player, and everybody's talking about that, but what's your initial thought on how the Coyotes are going to be this year?
They're in an interesting position because they've never been in this spot where now all of a sudden expectations are a little bit higher. Because every year it seems like we had been talking about they're close, they're taking steps, they're getting there, they're close. Well, last year they finally got to the playoffs, as you know, and they won a game, they got to the second round. So now it's a different level of expectation. Now they know how to get there. It's not a matter of climbing. They got there. Now it's just, well, how do you take that next step? How do you compete in your conference, and beat the Jackrabbits and the Bison consistently? But I would have to think they've got things rolling now with Bob Nielsen. It took him only 2 years. So now year 3, you'd have to think everybody's on a little bit, they're on the same page. Everything's ironed out a little bit more. Everybody's on the same wavelength as far as the defense and the offense. There's no more, there are no more obstacles that way. So you'd have to think they're probably ready to take that next step. Which
is a tough one to take. The Missouri Valley is brutal, and you lose Chris Strevler, who should have been probably the National Player of the Year last year in the FCS, great offensive player. playing in Canada now in professional football. But he goes, and that's what everybody says, well, the Yotes are going to take a step back.
Right.
They did have a backup last year. His name's Austin Simmons, who didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but he's a very good athlete. That's the story on him, is he throws a better ball than Chris Strevler. But what are your thoughts on who's going to be quarterback this year for the Coyotes?
Well, it's his job, and Bob has said that from day one, that Austin does throw the ball better than Chris. And if you think about this too, Chris went almost the entire year. I mean, it took him 7 or 8 games before he threw an interception.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that too. As much as they throw and as many plays as they run, he didn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
And then a couple, of course, then caught up to him a little bit. But so if you're using that barometer, if he throws the ball better than Chris, maybe that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
But then again, the other side would be, well, he doesn't have the legs. He's not going to
Strevler was such
extend
a playmaker
plays.
that could just make things happen.
Yeah, if things fell apart, he could go and run 50 yards for a touchdown and outrun the defense. Maybe that's not a strength of Austin's.
Yeah.
But then again, they always say he's not a statue back there. He's able to move, but
We
we'll
think
see.
he's going to fill in pretty well. And you talk about the defensive side of the ball. Darren Greenfield's one of the best defensive linemen in the FCS ranks. They're going to be tough up front. The Coyotes, I think their strength is going to be offensive, defensive line.
Sure.
That's what we're hearing early on, right?
Yeah, and maybe in the secondary they're a little inexperienced there, so they're probably going to bring a lot more pressure just because of the strength. They're really deep on the line.
Yeah.
That's a huge strength for them.
Do you ever get much out of Bob Nielsen? Bob Nielsen is famous for being straight down the line, and that's just the way he is, right?
He's a quiet guy. He'll keep it to the vest, but you're not going to see much emotion from Bob. It was a big 180 going from Joe Glenn to Bob Nielsen. That's for sure.
All right, great coverage coming up on the Coyotes and Yankton High School activities from Jeremy at the Yankton Press and Dakotan. Appreciate it, buddy.
Good to see you.
See you out there. Thanks for watching here on Benchwarmers.